unfortunately, it doesn't work, I'm guessing, ratings-wise. They decide to flip the format. Did your heart kind of sink?
Yeah. I was pretty devastated, yeah. But the first time I was fired, yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything before that.
Benztown President Dave Chachi Dennis loves radio and all of his radio friends.
Hey, Chachi. Hey, everybody.
Because Chachi loves everybody.
My next guest is the host of the third most listened to morning show in New York. And I mean, she really should be the second most listened to morning show in New York. She just missed it by, I think, 100 listeners, 100 AQH, if you can believe that. But to put that into perspective, only Elvis Duran and Scott Shannon have more listeners. She's not only an incredible radio personality, but she's also a remarkable actress, playwright, and podcast host. Please welcome Christine Nagy from Cubby and Christine Mornings on Lite FM or WLTW. Christine, thank you so much for being on with me today. I really appreciate it.
Are you kidding? Thank you. Thank you so much for asking me, Chachi. It's an honor. Thank you.
I was fortunate enough to meet you. I think it's probably at least been a decade, maybe 12 years now, through our friend Heather Cohen. Heather, you and I sat next to each other at, I think it was a City of Hope wine dinner in New York. And I just remember you making such an amazing impact on me and just so nice, so approachable. And you were already dominating New York at that time in the ratings. And you're just so humble and easy to talk to.
Oh, well, thank you. And same here. I had, and I was right, the best first impression of you. And Heather is wonderful, right? Heather is my agent for radio, and she's fantastic. Incredible.
Yeah, I just saw her a few days ago. She was in Vegas with Nick Cannon, so it was good to see her, and she's doing really well. And she's the agent to the stars. I just saw you. That is I'm going to bring this up right now, but Christine's a huge animal lover, such as myself. You had a cat, Huey, for many years, and then Huey passed away, I guess, about a year or two ago, unfortunately. But now you have a new kitty?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, Huey was with me through so much and then passed away right after we locked down in such a, always a painful time to lose anybody, but especially then. And I felt like I could never adopt again because I couldn't go through the heartache again. But like you said, you're an animal lover, and this house was so empty without having an animal. So I think I caved in within 3 months or something. I was at North Shore Animal League, and I adopted this guy who is probably going to be interrupting our podcast quite a bit.
All
just
good.
Prepare yourself.
What's his name?
His name is Archie.
Archie. I 100% know how that goes. And I think the best way of honoring your prior pet is by adopting another one, because there's so many animals out there that are in need of a home. Mm-hmm. And it is incredibly tough because my Chihuahua, as you know, Penny, who I lost a few years ago, that was incredibly tough. And I don't have any kids. And an animal is in a lot of ways like a kid that never grows up because they're with you all the time, always dependent upon you. And so I remember the exact same thing coming home when she was gone. And even though she was only 9 pounds, it just felt like there was so much energy that had just dissipated from the house.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. They bring you so much joy, right? And they're a part of you. I feel like they're a part of your soul. They understand what you're feeling, and I understand what they're feeling. And Archie and I are getting to that level. He's still a crazy kitten, basically, even though he's going to be 2, but he still has that kitten energy. So he's just like really excited about everything. And especially when I come home, he's really excited. So that's always cool.
It'll take some time for him to have that Dalai Lama type wisdom.
Yes, exactly.
That Huey had.
Right.
Talking about growing up, tell me a little bit about your youth. What was it like? Where did you grow up?
Well, you mentioned I work in New York. I grew up right outside of New York City in northern New Jersey. My mom was from Brooklyn. My dad was off the boat from Hungary. We have that in common, our Hungarian backgrounds.
Which we do, yes. That's right. When did your dad leave? My father left during the Revolution in 1956. When did your dad come over?
Yeah, my dad actually was after World War II. So I think my father, probably quite a bit older than your dad. And he made his way. It took a while. It took him about 6 years, but he made his way to New York, where he met my mom. Didn't speak English, but they fell in love. And many years later, here I am. So they lived in Manhattan for a while, and then they moved to the suburbs of New Jersey, which I know for a fact broke my mom's heart because she was really a a city girl. Yeah.
Was
so
she
I grew up.
Was she Hungarian as well?
No, not of Hungarian descent. She's of German descent. But I grew up going back and forth to Manhattan all the time because she loved art and the museums, and that's where her friends were, and family was out there. So I identify with New York City in a big way.
Is that where your love of art came from your mom? Because you are so artistic, I'd mentioned, but you're a playwright, an actress, obviously an amazing on-air talent. You're just really multi-faceted in your talent and your artistic ability.
Thank you so much. I think that came from my mom's side. My dad was a soccer player, and I'm terrible with sports, zero coordination. So whatever genes kind of filtered through was definitely, I picked up on those. It's funny because we're split, and my family, my brother Charles was a great musician, so he got the artistic side, and my brother Steven is a great athlete, so he got my dad's side.
Oh, that's amazing. One of the best soccer teams of all time, and sometimes arguably looked back if you try to pick, like, what was the best baseball team of all time? And, they'll pick the Yankees when Gehrig and Murders Row was there and Babe Ruth and so forth. But there's a Hungarian soccer team. I want to say this was probably in the 20s or the 30s, but prior to the war, that was kind of revered as like the best, possibly the best soccer team that had ever lived. And they went, I want to say 100+ games without losing a game.
Oh, wow. I don't even know about this.
Yeah, I need to get you some more info on it. But soccer is a religion in Hungary and in a lot of Europe, as you know.
Definitely, yeah.
So did your dad play just more kind of recreationally, or did he professionally compete?
Yeah, I guess he was professional when he was in Europe and then tried to pick that up here professionally, but couldn't sustain a living with it. It wasn't as popular, especially then.
Sure. So he was a high-level athlete then.
He was, yeah. I mean, he was always taking us out into the park, and we were seeing his great skills. We'd watch him play. He was really, really amazing, but I never got to see him play professionally.
Okay. That's a cool story, though, that he had such soccer skills back in Europe. That would be highly revered. We don't have
definitely.
Here, because we have so many other sports, baseball and hockey and American football. Soccer doesn't get, I think, the respect it deserves, but you go elsewhere and it nothing is bigger. It makes our American football seem incredibly small, actually, as big as it is. Right.
Yeah. The fans are really passionate. He did take to baseball, and he loved the Yankees.
Okay. So growing up, did you know you wanted to be on the air?
Yeah, I think I did. I knew that I loved acting. Like I think I declared it when I was 2 years old or something. I told my parents I was going to be an actress, and they kind of went, "Oh, huh. Maybe I'll think about that," like later on. And I had a little tape recorder when I was a kid, and I would pretend to be a newscaster, and like want to go up to people and do street reporting, man on the street kind of stuff. And
that's so cute. Were they supportive of it?
Yeah, they were. They really, really were. So I knew that I loved acting. I knew that I loved the interviewing, and really discovered that I loved radio when I went to college. Like that's where I found like, oh, I love radio, even over TV broadcast news. Like radio felt like home to me.
Where did you go to school?
Montclair State University.
And did they have a broadcast program there?
Yeah, they did. They had an amazing program, and they still do. And they, it's a school I highly, highly recommend. It's here in northern New Jersey. And they've got like a great ratio of hiring, for the kids graduating, actually getting real jobs in the industry. That's very highly regarded. Yeah.
So when you went, was that your major, communications with an emphasis on broadcasting?
It was, yep. Actually, I majored in broadcasting. It's its own major.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. And I have down, and correct me if I'm wrong, but your first gig was actually a traffic reporter. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. For NBC. And was that right out of school? Yeah,
that was right out of school. That was
in what market?
New York.
Oh my God, that's incredible. So you literally graduate and you go into market number one as a traffic reporter.
Yeah, I did. Honestly, I was really, really lucky. And again, we're going back a couple of years, so, bear with me. But there was such a thing as a phone book and, yellow pages. And I was graduating school, and I thought, well, I want to work in radio. Where are the radio stations? And I kind of just looked it up in the telephone book, which, you can go Google now and,
get out.
and
so
called
that's how
stations. Yes. And I called Shadow Traffic and they liked my voice and they said, come on in. It was a friend of mine also, vouched for me that I would be good. And they invited me in and that's how that happened.
I mean, that's incredible. That's actually virtually unheard of. I love the tenacity and the fact that you just went through the phone book and that's how you, and you were cold calling stations, but to get hired in Market One as as your first gig. I mean, I don't know if I know anyone who had that trajectory. So you were working for Shadow. Were you doing multiple stations for them or were you just on one station for Shadow?
Yeah, I was on a bunch of stations and that's why, moving forward in my career, I mean, that's fantastic in and of itself, but that also gave me incredible exposure to all the different stations and the formats. And, I was doing NBC, their local Today New York show in the morning. That also gave me opportunities for broadcast television. There was a while where the producers there were interested in talking to me. I was going in, I was learning how to, quote unquote, put together packages.
That's amazing. So when you were on with Shadow in New York, was it both audio and video?
Yes.
Both. Geez, that must have been like drinking from a fire hose. So much must have been coming at you.
It was a little crazy, yeah, because, in a good way, and probably better that I didn't know how big it was at the time, that I just kind of went, okay, I'll do this. Okay, I'll do that. But I was doing the morning show Today in New York. I started as a fill-in there, so I was up bright and early to do TV, and then I'd go home and take a little nap and then come back in the afternoon and do afternoon drive and do traffic reports for stations like 1010 Winds, like major radio stations in New York.
Amazing. How often are you, when you're bouncing from station to station, and I know a little bit about traffic, but not a great deal, how much time do you have in between? And if they're running a few minutes late, can't that just now impact everything like a domino?
Yeah, it was that part of it was really, really stressful because if you could be balancing 6 or 7 stations in a shift and have to hop from one to another. And there were different ways to sign on to stations at that point, and like you said, somebody's off just a couple of minutes or something doesn't connect and the timing's off. And then doing a station like 1010 Winds, where it's got to be to the minute because that's how they market themselves. You can't be late. So there was a little bit of pressure in that. So now I've got like timing down. I used to walk around with a big stopwatch, like wear it as a necklace.
Like Flavor Flav?
Yeah, exactly. Before my time or around the same time. And then like I would have the real time on there, but then I knew too, like if I was going to take a little break, I've got 3 minutes, boom, I would hit it, to make sure it come back.
Did you have a producer or anyone helping you or you had to do this all on your own?
The people were producing the traffic. They were working like mad to get the latest traffic reports up on the screen. So you were reading it in real time. And they kind of had their own lingo. So you kind of had to learn this traffic ease, almost the way like they were writing it.
A court reporter, you have to know how to translate it all.
Yes, yeah. It's kind of their traffic code, exactly. And know the roads inside and out. So like to this day, I don't really get lost in New York because I hear the traffic in my head. I know what exit's going to come up next.
You don't need navigation. You're good.
Right. It's me. I'm the navigation.
So from traffic reporting in New York for Shadow, obviously a big gig because you're bouncing around from all these different stations. How do you get hired to be the morning co-host of Q104? You were on with Trent Tyler, and you were there when they literally they flipped it from a classical music station. And so how did that come to be?
I was the first live voice after they flipped. They brought me on to do traffic reports.
Okay.
And Bob Elliot was the program director, and there was going to be a big launch party for Q104, New York's Pure Rock. And I was invited to that party. And I thought, this is a really important moment. I want to really be prepared, and I want to know this format inside and out, and talk to this program director and let them know that I'd be really interested in doing more for the station. And that's what happened. We met at the big launch party, and then I got called in for an interview and teamed up with Trent Tyler to do mornings.
Amazing. And you knew at that time as you were doing traffic that you wanted to transition into being a morning show host. Was that something? I mean, it sounds like it was certainly something you wanted and you did all the due diligence and obviously impressed the programmer. But what was it that turned you on to doing radio versus, because as that traffic reporter role, you could have, I would assume, move into television reporting or television anchor. What made you decide that radio was where you wanted to be?
I just, I felt more comfortable with radio in that I could be myself, so to speak, doing TV news. The little bit of experience that I had going out there was incredible, but radio just felt to me a little more immediate and personal and creative rather than reporting. I mean, you've got to be incredibly creative to be a great reporter, and I'm not taking anything away from that, but the storytelling aspect of radio and the slice of life and the lifestyle reports, all of that kind of stuff. There wasn't as much of that in television when I was getting started. I think now there's more of an outlet for that in TV, but personality-driven TV broadcasters, I didn't see that as much. I saw them more as like straight news reporters, and I didn't feel that was the right fit for me.
Yeah. That's funny. I felt the exact same way. I had the luxury when I was getting my start in San Diego, which was impressive until I heard you got your start in New York.
I think San Diego's amazing.
I was at KFMB FM, which was the radio station, but they also had KFMB Television, which was the CBS affiliate. And so I had a very good friend of mine, still a very good friend of mine to this day, who was working down there. And so I'd get a nice taste of television. I could just walk down the hall and kind of take it all in. But it seemed very regimented to me and just not, to your point, I guess probably not as loose as I would want it to be. And radio just felt less nerve-wracking, I guess, than TV.
Exactly. Radio, you feel like you're talking to your friends, right? And
yes,
it feels like this exchange. And again, with my background also being in acting, that it's improv every second of every day.
Actually, when you're
on the air. Yeah. So it felt more comfortable to me. It felt more like the right place for me.
Well, it was obviously the right choice because you've had just an amazing career. So how long are you on the air at Q104?
Oh, 2 years. And then they flipped formats again.
Okay. Before we get to the transition, because and then you go on to Z100, the story just gets crazier and crazier. But what was it like literally just cracking the mic for the first time? You'd have been on the air as a traffic reporter, but now to crack the mic as the co-host of a morning show in New York City, what did that feel like?
I just think I was so excited about it. I know I'm nervous. I'm always nervous, especially with something new. And then you kind of get over that because you start to feel like you're at home and you're making it your own. But really, like, what an incredible opportunity. This is a brand new format with a whole new audience that doesn't know you yet. It's like we're all getting to know each other. It was an incredible 2 years of work. I really loved my experience there.
And then, unfortunately, it doesn't work, I'm guessing, ratings-wise. They decide to flip the format. Did your heart kind of sink?
Yeah. I was pretty devastated, yeah. But the first time I was fired, yes. Yeah. I'm trying to think if there was anything before that. But I was also, I was doing Tony and Tina's Wedding off Broadway at the time, right, where I was playing Tina. I'd just been cast in that. And it was like my second or third week doing that show. And then I found out that I lost my job at Q. And I was let go on a Friday afternoon and had to go on it as Tina on Friday night. And I was like devastated, elated to be doing this role. But, there's so much going on.
Both these feelings, like this adrenaline of getting on stage and, having this huge role and then also losing your gig. How long were you on the beach, per se, after you lost Q and then you somehow end up at Z100? So walk me through that.
8 days.
Get out.
I don't even want to say.
You were.
Because I know what this sounds like now because I'm older and I know how it goes. I have more life experience now.
That's incredible.
8 days sounds so obnoxious, but it really. And I thought I was going to die. Like, seriously. I didn't think I'd survive.
You didn't even have time to take any sort of vacation. You literally 8 days later. So how did you land the gig at Z100?
You're going to say, what? I walked a demo into Z100. I am like the shyest person. I don't know where I get this from. When I want a job, I'm going for that job. And I took what I had from Q104 and walked it into Z and left it for Tom Pullman, who was the program director. very confidently. And I said, wow, I've got this great audience at Q and they want to know where they can find me. So I'd love to say they can find me here. And, life is all about timing. There was a position open. It was Elvis and Elliot, and they were looking for a female co-host. So the stars aligned on that one.
So you walk in the air check. Tom Pullman, obviously one of the most respected, one of the greatest set of ears of all time, legendary programmer and CHR programmer in particular, listens to the air check. It must have been one of, I can only imagine how many probably were sent to him, listens to it, and then you get a call right away?
Yeah, I got a call right away.
And what does he say? Walk me through that conversation.
He kind of used my words that were in this probably handwritten letter, and he said, "Okay." He goes, "Let's bring your audience over here. Let's see how we do." So it was a trial run, and Elvis and Elliot were happy with me and hired me, and
amazing.
It was just amazing. Yeah.
Now, everyone knows Elvis at that point, and Elliot for that matter, but at that point, I mean, had they exploded to the level that Elvis is at today, or was this still kind of a budding show?
No, it was definitely a budding show. Okay. I think they were pretty new together as a team. And Z was in a bit of a transition, right? Because they had done the alternative music, sort of what we were doing at Q104.
Okay.
They were alternative, and then they were returning back to top 40.
Oh, I see.
So they were, again, I was in a situation where we're trying something new, even though that had historically worked for Z, and that's definitely who they are. It was new at that time again. So finding that audience again, I got to build.
But what a
great show.
I'm sure, it must have been a great time. You had, and I was doing a little bit of research, and I came across a video on YouTube, and you were talking about being there in New Jersey on with Elvis and Elliot when the Twin Towers were struck. And you could literally see out the window. You had a direct line of sight to the towers. And could you tell us a little bit about that? And just, obviously, I think all of us, I remember I was at that time working with Johnny, and Mark and Kim were doing mornings on Coast, and I got called from Mark, and he said, "You need to come down here." And I remember that day like it was, yesterday, and racing on the freeway to get to the station. But fill me in what it was like to see it firsthand.
Yeah, at that point, Elliot had moved on, so he was in Washington D.C. So now it's Elvis's show, and our building was the tallest building in Jersey City, directly across the water, directly across the Hudson River from the World Trade Center. So I was on air. My back is to the windows. Elvis has a view. And he was our phone up at the time, Tim Louie, said, "You guys came in when we were in a break." And he said, "There's a fire at the World Trade Center." And I turned around and Elvis looked. I think we had the shade down because it was a beautiful day. It was really, really sunny. We put the shades up and we're like, well. And then our first thought was okay, a plane must have hit the building. We thought a small plane. It didn't, from our point of view, it didn't look like a massive fire.
Right.
And we were very obviously upset because we knew that somebody had been hurt. At least one person had been hurt. And we opened up the mics and we said, there's something happening at the World Trade Center. We were kind of describing what we were seeing. And then the second plane hit. And then it truly was, we said, we're going to put you on with national news. I mean, it's hard to even, I still can hardly talk about it.
Yeah. It's just heart-wrenching, even 20
it really
years.
Is.
Ago, and I remember that day like it was yesterday. Mm-hmm. Did you lose any friends or family in the towers?
No, I didn't. Tim, who was our phone op at the time, he was a great rock band right now, by the way. He the person who alerted us, he did lose his cousin in the building. So I knew people who lost people. Before we knew the scope of it, we wanted to just help, anything we could do to possibly help. And some of our promotions crews went over there downtown to try and pick people up because there were people who needed rides to get home, to get out of the area. Wow. And they came back to the station and they were covered in that dust that you see people covered in. And that was the next day, I think. I don't think we immediately went over there. We all just tried to get home safely that day. And then we went back on air the next day, and we kind of just, even though, morning show, we're supposed to sign off at 10, we just stayed on. We went back on, even onto the weekends, just offering whatever we could. I remember nurses calling in that were exhausted, that had worked like 3 days in a row and just needed a ride home. We just were kind of offering up the airwaves to help people and for people to get messages across to each other, to their friends and relatives, that they were safe.
Right. This is early days, very early days of internet, very early days of cell phones.
Cell phones were down.
Cell towers were down. Amazing. I mean, heart-wrenching, but also what you guys did was incredible. And I'm sure so many, millions of people probably got a tremendous amount of accurate information from what you and Elvis and the entire team was doing there.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Elvis really, really led the way on that one. And, called us the day of, on September 11th, he called us that evening. And he said, if you don't want to come in tomorrow, I understand, but are you up for it? And, I said, yes. And everyone else on the team said yes. And I think that was our way of feeling like contributing, just, wanting to do whatever we could do to help.
Sure. You guys, I think, did an amazing job, as did other shows in New York and obviously the first responders. But I heard that story and I just wanted to hear it from you because I found it so powerful as you were telling it. So thank you. I know it's a tough thing to have to bring up, but thanks. I really appreciate you sharing it. Z100, how long do you end up staying there?
8.5 years.
That's an amazing run. So you go now from being a traffic reporter, you, I guess, cut your teeth, if you can call it that, doing mornings on Q104 in New York. And now you're on with Elvis as the co-host. And the station, at this point, you get there as they transition from really kind of an alternative into now CHR, and are really there as it's catching its stride, and it goes on to be the most listened to CHR station on the planet, or at least in the United States. Yeah, incredible.
They're amazing.
What was that? Let's talk just about some of the, we just talked about, obviously a very serious moment, but some of the fun times, and tell me just like a story where you felt like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here and experiencing this.
I feel like almost every day, that station was so tremendous. I shouldn't say so because it's, it's past tense for me, but always a part of me. That was the first time, except for doing TV, people would recognize you sometimes. But I would go out and people would recognize me by my voice. Like I would, ask for a table at a restaurant and someone would ask if I was from the morning show on Z. It was like, wait, what? That's how big that show is and was. Right. I mean, they're, incredible. So moments like, being on stage at Madison Square Garden and introducing Mariah Carey is like, I still can't wrap my head around that I got to do that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And work with such tremendous talents, people who are legendary. Elvis is legendary. So it was an incredible experience and opportunity.
Yeah, what an amazing set of call letters, and what to be able to study under the tutelage of Tom Pullman and Elvis, and it's like, oh my gosh, you couldn't ask for better mentors in the space. So you're Z now for 8.5 years, and how does the call to LTW? How does that happen? Because you transition over there to go work now with another legendary programmer, Jim Ryan. I've got so much respect for, and go co-host a show with Bob Ronson. So, is that something you just walked down the hall and asked for, or how did that happen?
No, I didn't ask for that one. but I was very fortunate that it was offered to me. Tom Pullman called me into the office and said, "There's an opportunity. They want to build a morning show at Lite FM," and gosh, they have wonderful people on the air. Bill Buckner was on the air with Nick Regory doing weather, but they weren't doing a full-on, obviously, Z Morning Zoo format.
Sure.
They just wanted to add in a little more talk, like tread the water lightly and try a little more quote-unquote personality, like bring out Bill's personality, bring me in. And
but you're still playing. You're playing several songs an hour.
Oh, quite a few. So, yeah. So that's it. So I kind of went in there and at first was like, I don't even know how to get started because there was so much music that was being played and the audience wasn't used to hearing a lot of chit chat. And I certainly didn't want to turn anybody off. but we wanted to build this new audience or introduce the audience they had to just a little more in the morning news and lifestyle reports and that friendly chit chat. So Bill was wonderful and welcomed me onto his show.
That's fantastic. So let me ask you just kind of a psychological, because what you did is very similar to what Ellen Kay has done now here in Los Angeles. She went from KISS and then moved over to Coast and has had a tremendous amount of success. Was there some, because I remember when I was running K-Big and there was some talk about changing the morning show and so forth. And I don't want to name names, but one of the big CHR talents here was really against going over to an AC format. Was that something that you kind of thought about and you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. It isn't going to be as exciting. It's not as sexy as CHR. Did you have to grapple with that a bit?
Yeah, definitely. At first, it was an adjustment, and obviously, I'm really happy where I am, and it turned out great. But
yeah,
anytime there's a change, I mean, even going from New York's pure rock, right, Q104 to Top 40, as much as I love that music, was a change. It's a change of lifestyle. It's a different audience. So going over to Lite was okay. Who is this audience? What are they into? What type of music do they like? Can I embrace this music? And I can, and I could, but definitely had to adjust. I mean, you're going from Z Morning Zoo with all those personalities to like a really calm, mellow show that's just starting to build. So I've got to kind of pull back and not have those expectations. It's a completely different approach. But I didn't want to fall into the trap of thinking, well, Lite FM is calming and it's quiet, and start doing that sort of thing. I was like, no, they brought me over here because they like what they're hearing on Z. So I have to make sure that I'm still myself fitting into this format. And I think that was key. Like when I had that aha moment, my brother was the one who helped me see that, Yeah, because he was listening and he said to me, he goes, Christine, he goes, stop lighting it up. And I was like, what? And he goes, I think you're trying to sound like the format. Stop trying to be light. Just be you. That's who they hired. And it was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And that's when it kind of all came together.
He's quite the morning show coach.
Yeah, he was great.
He was spot on, and I applaud you for that move because I think it was sheer brilliance and honestly ahead of your time in a lot of ways. And I would imagine part of that architecture is what they were thinking of when they moved Ellen over. And Ellen's had a tremendous amount of success on Coast. It's been I'm so happy for her because I used to work with her.
She's somebody I really admire. I've never met her, so.
Oh, no kidding?
Please give her my love and tell her how much I admire her.
I'll connect you guys. You guys are actually so similar in so many ways, and she's a fantastic talent. And I think it takes a lot of guts, but also you've just done an amazing job of embracing that because it is a big change. And to now all of a sudden, and I'm guessing to some degree. Because Elvis was I understood that when you were on, on Q104, it was your show with Trent, but that was something new, something that was established. And now you're on with Elvis. And Elvis is such a big personality. And so you kind of feel now it's really, you are there. It is all, the pressure is on you. So that's got to be a lot of stress. Because I know Ellen went through that. Here she's on with Rick Dees, and you've got Rick there, who's a big personality, and then Ryan Seacrest. And now all of a sudden it's you. And that is, I'm sure, somewhat, even with that experience of being on in LA or New York for as many years, it's got to be still really stressful.
Oh yeah, you nailed it. I also, when I got the job at Lite, they were really generous with me. I was also working for Sirius XM. I was hired by Martha Stewart, started a channel.
I have that. I got to hear about this. So yes, tell me about the Martha Stewart channel.
Because they kind of tie in together. They happened at the same time is why I'm bringing it up. I hope that's okay if I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
I love, that's how I know you're such a good morning show host, is like your prep is better than mine.
I know. Yeah, I kind of have this down in my life story.
So please, I didn't know it happened simultaneously.
It happened around the same time. It was unbelievable. And I didn't want to miss any opportunity. So I always say yes, right? Always say yes, and you will step up. You will find the way. But they asked me if I was comfortable hosting my own shows. So even beyond Lite, like at Lite, I still had a co-host, right? At Martha, I was the sole host. are you comfortable hosting a show and having guests and giving away prizes? And I'm like, yes.
I can do that.
I'm like, oh, no. No. Like Elvis always did all that stuff. Like, can I do this? But, I got over there and I did it and I loved it. And that was another tremendous experience. I met so many interesting people and learned so much.
Your work ethic is unbelievable. So you're doing mornings, you're hosting a show. And was this a weekly show or a daily show on the Martha Stewart channel?
Daily.
Oh my gosh.
I say that like, I don't know how I survived because I would do the morning show. Fortunately, at that point, Lite FM was in Midtown because you know how easy it is to get around Manhattan, right?
Right.
So Lite FM is on Midtown and 6th Avenue at, I think we were at 44th. And then Martha, Sirius XM, where Howard Stern is, that's on 6th Avenue and 48th maybe.
So just a couple blocks.
Yeah, but there were mornings where I was running. It was so tight. From me doing the morning show to having to be on air live for Martha. And you can't navigate Manhattan sidewalks very quickly or easily. So, and then the security at the building was super intense. They wouldn't just let you up. Like every day there was kind of a search. Your bag had to go through. And we were so many stories up and it was a little stressy that way. But again, so worthwhile. And I do like to share, that's okay, like the story of how I discovered that I wanted to do the Martha Stewart
and
channel.
what was on the channel, or what is on the channel, the Martha Stewart channel?
It was her. It was 24/7 of the Martha lifestyle of her brand and her magazines, and so I hosted her daily magazine show. So one day was cooking, and another was crafting, and one was beauty and
talk. This is a talk format.
Pure talk.
Oh my gosh.
With her experts who are incredible, each one like so specialized and so talented. When I thought I've got to work for her was when Martha Stewart had served a prison term and she was out of jail and she held a press conference and she said, like she had the poncho on when she came out of jail. I don't know if you remember that. I do
remember that. Yeah.
She held she was talking to the media after she got out and she said, I'm going to start a radio channel at Sirius XM. And I was watching it on TV live and I said out loud to the TV, I'm going to work for that radio channel. And I was just determined to get
This is a common theme in your life. Was this something that just is innately in you, or your mother, your father, your brother? Where did you get this tenacity? I think it's an incredible quality, but I don't think a lot of people have it. So where does it come from?
Oh, thank you. I think innately in me, and then, good support and my parents and my brothers, but it just has always been a part of me. And that's like the big thing that I always want to share is that if there's something you truly, truly want and desire, just declare it, just get it, own it. It's yours.
You are a walking testament to that. Just an amazing story. And so are you still doing Martha Stewart today?
No, that lasted about 2 years.
Okay.
There were some changes over there and they started cutting back on what shows they were doing. And now I'm not even sure where her channel is at. If I think maybe they folded into another channel. It stopped being a 24/7 channel. So
when do you sleep? Because you're getting up in the morning. What time do you get up?
3.
So you're up at 3 and you guys are you on air at 5:30?
5:30, right. So and I'm still doing the news, the traffic, lifestyle reports, entertainment, all that stuff. So I have to get in a little earlier and write all of that.
And prep all that. Then you do your show until 10, and then you would run over to do Martha. And how long was that?
That was a 1-hour show.
A 1 hour. And then go home. And then it's relatively common that you're also starring in a play. And so you're working several nights a week. And so are you like napping in the day for a few hours? And then, how do you manage all that?
Yeah, you just sleep when you can, right? Like just grab sleep when you can. I'm trying to think I think I was done with Tony and Tina's. I wasn't doing that anymore when I was doing Martha. But I had Martha every day and I was also one of their fill-ins. So sometimes I would do afternoon shifts as well. So it would be super, super long days. And then I think honestly just probably asleep as soon as I got home, just sleep whenever. And the weekends, try and make up for it on the weekends.
Right.
I didn't start doing theater. I didn't pick up theater again until after I was done with Martha because there just wasn't the room.
Sure. You have to have some time to rest.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to LTW. You and Bob have an amazing run. You guys are on the air for 10 years and become one of or I'm sure at some given time, the most listened to morning show in the country. And after 10 years, Bob decides he's going to retire, and you get paired with the very famous Cubby Bryant. And tell me a little bit about that transition.
So now I have found, besides my boyfriend, the love of my life, Paul Cubby Bryant. Who knew? We say this to each other all the time. We were both working at Z, but he was doing afternoons and I was doing mornings. We would chit-chat a little, and it was like friendly. Sure. We did not know that we are like the same person split in half. I mean, he is like, talk about soulmates. We get along so well and have just so much in common, approach things the same way, feel things the same way. He's just been incredible. He's just like the most loving, giving, beautiful person. Like, can't say enough positive things about him.
You guys have an amazing synergy on the air. You sound fantastic together. And I think that's part of what makes you so amazing. Everyone that you've been paired with, you just do an amazing job of, and I don't know, I'm sure that to some degree there's just an innate talent and ability there, but you know how to pull emotion and know how to connect with someone and I think put them at ease, which is not easy to do. And it's very impressive because you've been on with just these gigantic personalities that, you know, the Elvises of the world and Cubbies and Bob and so forth. But it's very impressive talent. Do you work with talent coaches? Obviously, you've had Jim Ryan, you've had Tom Pullman, you've had some amazing programmers, but have you worked with talent coaches in the past?
I haven't. No. I mean, I am definitely open to taking direction. You know, Chris Connelly is our program director now, and he's wonderful. And if he gives me direction, I take it, you know, and I think a lot of that is also with my background in acting. So I've done so much coaching, an incredible acting coach, Anthony Amson, who's teaching in Manhattan, who's wonderful. I would recommend to anybody and everybody. And they only feed each other and help each other.
It's interesting you bring that up because you brought up improv earlier in the conversation and how it's always, you know, live radio, why that was different than television. And those skill sets really do match well. And I never thought about it before, but would you say that improv and acting has made your radio career better and vice versa?
Yeah, absolutely. They help each other. So much of it is about being present and being truthful and listening. That's it. and about your partner. You know, the way I approach acting, a lot of it is about the partner, who you're working with. So there is so much focus on that, I guess that's, maybe you're right. I haven't even thought of that before, but maybe that ties into why I'm able to connect with whoever my quote unquote scene partner is in the radio station, right?
Yeah. That's such a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's really true. It is your scene partner. Just you're doing a different play every day, but that's a fun and different way to look at it. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about acting and your passion. I know it was something you're into as a kid, and you're able to balance both. I mean, being in New York, you're really fortunate geographically to have Broadway and have such a phenomenal art scene in the city. What are you doing right now? What are you acting in or doing off Broadway at the moment?
Well, I was working with a theater company put together with another wonderful friend of mine, AJ Ciccotelli, who I'll say is another soulmate. We even named our production company Soulmate Productions. And we had a non-for-profit theater company in Asbury Park, New Jersey, which has a great artistic community. And you probably know music community. Bruce Springsteen's from there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we were doing all original plays, really, I think, just beautiful, beautiful work. We had playwrights from London, New York, Chicago, LA. We were taking them from the ones that we could take from Asbury Park. We would take to New York City and do off-Broadway, the ones that we could support because, you know, as much as we could fund them because we're non-for-profit, we would take them on the road. And then we did some film with them as well, some short films, a couple of full-length features that have been doing really well on the film festival circuit. But then COVID and So we're now just starting to get back together to talk about what we can do. So the theater company is La Strada doesn't exist at the moment. I don't know if we're going to bring it back or we're going to do something different, but we're just talking about how we can work together again. And I recently did a podcast that I just loved because it was a drama, and it was written by Brad Forenza, and he directed it. And my co-star in that is B.D. Wong.
Oh, really?
And it's called Around the Sun. And my episode is Apothecary. And it was such an incredible piece. It's only 7 or 8 minutes long. It's very, very touching and real. So that was like a highlight through everything that happened over the pandemic that's been so rough. This was towards the end of the lockdown. We did this play for a podcast via Zoom. So I worked with B.D. Wong, which was like,
how cool is that?
I'm not worthy. It was just like, whoa. I just tried to keep my cool. And again, he's my partner. So just try and match that. Just try and keep up with that energy.
And this is this available? Can people see this like on YouTube?
Yeah, we didn't post a video of it. It's a podcast. It's audio only.
It's all audio. Okay.
Yeah, there's several episodes, and it's called Around the Sun.
Okay, and on iTunes, Spotify,
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I hopefully even iHeart, I believe. So, there's.
Oh, that's right. iHeart. Got to get that plug in. My apologies.
Yeah. Like I said, these are originally written scripts by Brad Forenza. They're 7-8 minutes long, very touching, very real human New York stories. And he's got famous actors in all of them. Again, the level of B.D. Wong is just, they're incredible.
Is acting, voice acting, when you're doing a role like that, that's audio only, how is that different in regards to your performance as opposed to something that's on stage? Do you have to think differently, or do you play that role out in a similar fashion?
No, I think just that when you're on stage, things are pitched a little differently because you're trying to reach the house, right? You're reaching an audience. So that changes the dynamic of it. But doing the podcast would be almost like doing work on film, where it's intimate, but you're using your whole being, your whole body. It's
so when you're recording, you're still acting it out physically.
Oh yeah, in a big way. Otherwise, I don't think it would be real.
You also have a podcast called Inside Broadway.
Yes, with Michael Riddle, who he used to write the theater reviews, the Broadway reviews for the New York Post. And now he has a column in the Post, and he co-hosts a morning show on WOR.
Oh, no kidding.
In our building, right?
Oh my
It's
gosh,
part of the
that's
iHeart
hilarious.
family. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you both have morning shows, and then you both co-host this podcast together.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, how fun. How often is it a weekly podcast?
Yeah, weekly. Since we've come back from the pandemic, it's been bi-weekly. So we'll see if we come back to weekly. But we've been getting some great guests. We get Broadway stars, and people behind the scenes. And
that's great.
It's really interesting, yeah.
And the theaters are all back open now?
They are, yeah.
Fantastic.
I don't know if they're all up to speed yet. It's been coming back. I forget the count of the shows that are up and running, but it's really, really coming back full force, especially this season. So it's really exciting to see that.
I'm happy to hear that. It's certainly been a crazy couple years, but I know as different cities come back to life, it's just a different energy, and especially in a city, like New York, it's just such an integral part of it. It's like a heartbeat for the city. So I'm happy.
It definitely is.
And I'm sure for you, because you just love theater. I mean, not only do you like, acting and reviewing, but you just are a student of it. I'm sure. Yeah.
I just love everything about it. Yeah, it's definitely my happy place. So I'm so glad to see theater coming back and live music coming back, because that's everything. My first show back after the pandemic was American Utopia, David Byrne's show on Broadway.
How was it?
Oh, incredible. Really, really just like the perfect show to come back to. I went with Eric, my boyfriend, who's a musician. And
he's a drummer, correct?
Yeah, he's a drummer. He's wonderful, by the way. Eric Kalb, there. Just a plug, because he's so good. So talented. So it was like a perfect combo, because we had music that we loved, and we were in the theater, and it was our first show back that we were both crying. And so was most of the audience. Like, we honestly were standing there dancing, kind of holding each other, and everybody was sobbing. We were together again. that connection, that energy
Communal,
was
sure.
just so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, probably a combination of it just being an amazing show, but also for the first time back together and the arts all being there.
That and David Byrne's message. I mean, that is almost like his whole message of the show, even before all of this happened, about human connection.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It sounds like a phenomenal moment. Did you happen to take any video of it? Or you were just immersed in it?
I'm so good. I play by the rules. They tell you
not
not to, and so
okay.
I don't. I think I have the curtain, and I usually take a little picture of the playbill so I can go on Instagram. Like, hey, we're here, yay!
That's good. You're a good audience member.
Yeah.
You're also really involved animal activism, women's health organizations. You were down and oh my gosh, the name of the. It's not Union Square. What's the other? Bryant Park. And I was watching some video where you're down there and you actually have the casts from different shows come out and out at Bryant Park. Is that a regular event or that was just kind of a special thing that you guys had done?
Yeah, that's a huge event for Lite FM that we do every summer and thankfully is back this year. We were back for one day last year. Normally it runs for up to 6 weeks during the summer. So it's Broadway and Bryant Park. So it's the Broadway shows come there and they perform 1 or 2 numbers or maybe even 3. And it's free and it's beautiful. It's the summertime in Manhattan and it's right at lunchtime and people can come by and see these great Broadway performers for free.
Just literally sing right there. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And hopefully that entices you to go see the show. You want to see more.
Yeah, that's really cool. I love that you're able to weave in your passion into what your daily job, if you will. I think that's incredibly cool and benefits some amazing charities along the way. Again,
that's kind of just like, the stars aligned. Lite FM and theater work together really beautifully. This audience loves theater as well, so I'm fortunate,
I was watching Warren Buffett had his annual meeting this last weekend, and it came up, about how he does what he loves, and you'll tap dance to work every day. And I think you are actually a perfect example of that. You really do what you love.
Very true.
You can hear it on the air, and you can see it, in social media and so forth.
Thank you.
A few miscellaneous, just kind of fun questions. We talked about, you've worked with the who's who of people, but we've talked about, obviously, Jim Ryan and Chris Connelly and Tom Pullman and Cubby and Elvis. But tell me, if you got to pick one of those guys out as a mentor, what is something that they've taught you that you would like to pass on?
Wow, it's hard to – that's a tough one to choose one as a mentor. I feel like what I've learned, the big takeaway from Cubby, from Elvis, from the on-air personalities is really, really being true to who you are and being very honest and very open with your coworkers, with your audience, like really letting it all out there and being friends with the audience and feeling their friendship come back at you and that appreciation, that gratitude,
That authenticity.
Yeah, I think being authentically you. And then when you have great program directors like Jim Ryan, like Tom Pullman, like Chris Connelly, who allows you to be who you are, that's when you feel free. That's when you feel free on air. And that's where you make those great connections with the listeners.
And I think you have to be very comfortable with yourself to be able to do that. I think it's easier said than done, and I agree with you 100% to be authentic, but I think so many people were born not wanting to share certain things, and to live your life on air like that is putting yourself into a vulnerable position. And so I really applaud that you've been able to do that in the largest market in the country and have such incredible success with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it wouldn't be for everybody, right? If you don't want to live that lifestyle, I respect that completely, if you want to keep things private. And I think also you have to, there's a lot of trust, when you have a great co-host, that there are certain boundaries, there are certain things that maybe aren't open for discussion or are a little sensitive, and we're not going to go there.
Sure.
So it's just that if you feel free enough to be yourself, that's where the magic happens for anybody in radio and I think in show business. Because it really was like an acting coach who told me, and I took that advice to heart years and years ago, like when I was 17 or something. Know who you are and be you to the fullest, because no one else can be you. There's only one you. So
Great.
At 17, when you're most of us are incredibly insecure, it's kind of like somebody telling you it's okay to be you, even if that isn't some standard that you see as perfect, because nobody's perfect, but really just your flaws, all of it works. Use all of it.
It's a great, fantastic piece of advice. What would you like to be remembered for? You've done obviously amazing things in radio, in plays and stage. If you had to pick one, radio or acting?
Well, I would like to hopefully be remembered for being a loving person. I think it's hard for me to choose as far as my career is concerned. You know, I'm so proud of the opportunities that I've had, and so it's also important to me. But I think being a kind, loving, giving person is where I'm going. I think is the most valued. So I hope I can do that and be that.
Well, I can vouch that you are. I think you are exactly who you say you are, which is rare, and I think should be treasured. Congratulations on all of your success. Please keep me abreast of what you end up doing with the La Strada Theater Company, and would love to catch you in a show, and hope you guys decide to bring it back now that hopefully the pandemic is mostly behind us. And thank you for everything that you do for radio and for women's health organizations and animal activism. And I know that Archie, I'm sure, is also very appreciative of that as well.
I think he is. I think he's a happy kitty.
Yeah, he may be too young to understand it.
Right. He'll get it. But thank you, Chachi. You're so generous, and it was so kind of you to have me and listen to my story. Thank you so much.
I loved every minute of it. Thank you so much, Christine.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Chachi Loves Everybody. If you like the show, we hope you'll leave us a 5-star rating and tell your friends. Make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. This has been a Benztown podcast production, hosted and researched by Dave Chachi Dennis. Executive producer, Kevin Horton. Produced and edited by Tom Green. Show coordinator, Juliana Parisi and Laura Keeney.